Well, I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Brett Olson. I work for Renewing the Countryside, as you can see in my little tag underneath. I work with Sarah George and a couple of other people on this phone call, so they'll introduce themselves. This is part of a Parsnip program, and I'll let Sarah tell you what that acronym stands for. State bureaucracies, they love to, so far the longest acronym I've ever been involved in, but really excited to see so many of you all here and trying to find better ways to implement farm to school in your own programs. And today we have three great guests, and I'll turn it over to Sarah because she's done the lion's share of making this happen. So thank you, Sarah. Let's keep
Thanks,
going.
Brett. I'm Sarah George, and I am a farmer in Pepin, Wisconsin, but I've also worked full-time with Renewing the Countryside. A lot of what I do is working with farm to school and farm to institutional work, and then connecting farmers to institutions as we're going through this. Parsnip is a pilot from the Department of Agriculture to see what happens if they put a regional coordinator. So acronyms, it's the pilot to accelerate regional support for nutrition for institutions and producers, which is fun, but Parsnip is a big, long acronym that we're going to go with. Tonight's call, we're going to be focusing in on talking about hearing from other food service directors on how they initiated farm to school, creative solutions that they've done to make farm to school happen in their institution. And when we first started doing these networking events, one of the things that was we wanted to do was ask our food service directors, what is it that you'd like to learn more about? School gardens and greenhouses, and implementing those into the schools was number one. And very second was this call where we wanted to start talking through meeting with other directors and hearing stories. And so your story matters. And so I am going to pass it over. I'm going to go down. Let's go Katrina, because you're next on the call. You're really quiet. Okay, we're not hearing Katrina. Try one more time. Katrina is an intern working with Renewing the Countryside. She's a student at Zumbrota-Mazeppa School District, and she's going to be working with some of you to see if she can learn a little bit more from each of you. Jill, Katrina's looking at doing the taste testing over at Zumbrota-Mazeppa with the children. That's what we've been emailing back and forth on this week. So I appreciate you working with us on that. And next I'm going to go to Augusta just to keep it on the Renewing the Countryside loop first.
Hi everyone, my name is Augusta. I'm also an intern working with Renewing the Countryside, but through Macalester College in St. Paul. And I'm doing a little bit of mapping for Sarah through Women in Conservation, and then also just doing some networking between the different players in the nonprofit. So I'm just gonna sit and listen for today.
Awesome, thanks Augusta. And then I'm gonna pass it over to Megan.
All right, hi everybody. I am with Goodhue County Public Health. I am the SHIP coordinator.
Thanks, Megan. And Tina.
I'm Tina Moen, Wabasha County Statewide Health Improvement Partnership Coordinator, otherwise known as SHIP like Megan. And I've been working with Renewing the Countryside and Sarah for years, working on food aggregation and working with schools.
Thanks, Tina. How about over to you, Jill?
Hi, I'm Jill Dutzman, and I am the food service director for Zumbrota-Mazeppa schools and Lake City schools.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. And Brenton.
I'm the food service director for Red Wing Public Schools.
Thanks for being here, Brent. And how about for you, Brian?
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Bloom. I'm the regional SHIP coordinator up in Northeast Minnesota with a collaborative called Healthy Northland. So I'm here to learn and bring back what I can to folks working on farm to school across the region.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Brian. And then I'm going to go to our three presenters that are going to be here this evening. Let's start with you, Vicki. If you want to tell us who you are, what school you're with, and then maybe give us a little bit of the demographics of your school, how many kids you have. And actually, I think a lot of people are thinking about COVID. So talk about what the last year, briefly, hit on what the last year was for COVID, and then we'll move on to more fun questions than that one.
Okay, so let's see. We're this from Lewis and Altura. We have about 750 students. I have 3 buildings. We are in the southeast corner of Minnesota, so we're kind of between Rochester and Winona. COVID was pretty tough, I think, on all of us, because in the first part, we did a lot of the packing of the meals. We were doing like 500 meals a day of lunch and 500 breakfast a day. And then we got to fall, and we started with passing out meals to those that were in distance learning. And then we had hybrid, and then our K through 6 were in person, but we had that all spread out. And then they all ate in the classroom. So then we had to take meals to the classroom, breakfast and lunch. And I'm hoping this fall that we can get back to opening our fruits and vegetable bars. I'm waiting for some guidance from MDE and hoping that can kind of get back into place, because we're back on the National School Lunch Program, and I'd like to see a lot more fresh fruits and vegetables going out instead of our packaged stuff. So it'd be kind of nice.
Sure. Thanks, Vicki. And how about over to you, Joe? I'm gonna
Hi, I'm Joe Lang, and I'm from way up north, Red Lake School District, number 38. I live in Black Duck, Minnesota. So we are up in the great, actually, Brian, we're just to the west of you. I think we're considered northwestern Minnesota. Red Lake School District has 1,500 students. We are 100% CEP, which is the community eligibility provision. So that means every student in our district has always received, well, since we started, I think this is our 6th year with the CEP, but they've always received free meals since the inception of the CEP program, which has been very, very helpful to us. And we had all of our students distance learning through the middle of February. And so we were preparing 1,500 breakfasts and 1,500 lunches every day in our 3 kitchens. And then the school bus drivers and the paraprofessionals would load up those meals, and they would go on their normal bus routes, so we didn't miss any students, and deliver all those meals 5 days a week. So it was an extremely busy, stressful time. And then in February, we brought the kids back in grade bands. So pre-K through 2nd grade were the first ones back in the building, and they were with us for about 3 weeks, I think, before basically the 3rd through 8th graders came back. And then once they were in for a few weeks, then the 9th through 12th graders came. But our district allowed the parents to decide if those kids were going to come back to school and learn in person or remain distance learning. And there was probably, I want to say, at least 25% of the kids hadn't returned at the end of the school year. They were still learning at home. But I really appreciated the fact that we brought them in grade levels, so that it was a more gradual changeover. So by the time we got to those senior high kids, it was pretty much a piece of cake that we had it all organized and we knew what we were doing. And all of our kids, when they were in the school building, they ate in the classrooms too. And then on Fridays, it was distance learning for all of the kids again. So the way we took care of that is once the kids were coming back into the building, we prepared 5-day meal kits, and they had 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches in a box for each student. And with that, we sent along a half a gallon of low-fat chocolate milk and a half a gallon of 1% white milk to accompany those meals to make them the reimbursable meals. And we did that for the kids that were staying at home. And then on Thursdays, the ones that were in the school buildings, they took home a breakfast and a lunch with them when they left in the afternoon for their meals for Friday. So it was a constant change around of how we're normally doing things. But as far as I know, the district at this point now is planning on every enrolled student being back in the buildings this fall. So we still won't be 100% normal. Just a little tidbit for you directors. I had been working on breakfast in the classroom for years, and I could never get anybody on board with that. So along comes COVID-19 and the pandemic. And when the kids came in, the teachers thought it was a good idea to have breakfast in the classroom. And now I get the memo this coming fall, breakfast is going to stay in the classroom. So there was one good thing because we serve more kids when it's in the classroom. You know, they just, I don't know, I guess when they're there with their friends and everybody else is eating, they want to eat too, but that's been a kind of a plus for us. So yeah, and we're going to go with the seamless summer option this fall. So we'll use the National School Lunch Program meal pattern, but we're going to go for that higher reimbursement rate. So that's just a little history on Red Lake.
Great, thanks, Joe. And I'm going to toss that over, the same question over to you, Barb. Where you're from, how many students?
Yeah, so I have been at Hopkins Public Schools for almost 15 years. Hopkins is in the next ring outside of Minneapolis, or considered an urban school district. And we have around, who knows after this pandemic thing, but somewhere around 6,500 students. We've generally are around 700, but we've lost some enrollment through the pandemic. And we are about 36 to 38% free and reduced. And we have 10 buildings and several contracts to provide meals for other charter schools. And I don't know, that pandemic, that I just don't even want to revisit it. I think I have PTSD.
You and me both. We talked about it.
We did. At the height of our service last spring, we were packaging 4,000 7-day meal bags with 7 breakfasts, 7 lunches. And that was really tough to do. And then all of we started back to school right away this last fall with kids in school. And it was just a yo-yo all year long and all kinds of different scenarios. We had so many first days of school. It was crazy. And so I was telling Sarah that the pandemic has brought out the farm girl, barn girl in me, because I like to use the F word a lot these days. And that was kind of behind me, but it's in my regular vocabulary. So if it slips out.
There's things that happen during this pandemic that just happen. And you know, the reason I asked about the pandemic is actually, as we're talking about farm to school, the farm to school leadership team, the farm to school, you know, coordinators all throughout the state have had conversations. I've been talking with food service directors all over, and you know what? Farm to school in 2020, did it happen for any of you in any way, shape, or form?
No, not for us up in Red Lake. It really didn't. We had big plans, and you know, we had some things in place, but it just fell apart last spring. So what we do in Red Lake is we have on the Red Lake Indian Reservation, we have a group that Gitanaki, I think is what it's called. It's local food project, and they're in the process. They got a great big grant, and they are building greenhouses and high tunnels. And they actually, what they've been doing is they come to us in the spring and we sit down together and we tell them which items we'd like them to grow in their garden so that they can turn around then in the fall when they're harvested and sell them to the school district for our salad bars. And we do, they raise potatoes so we can have baked potatoes or however we want to prepare and serve them too. And so that was all in place. And then March hit and that was the end of that. And I'm really disappointed because even this spring now, I got the initial contact and we were going to set up a meeting for him to come in and he never did. So I don't know if I don't know how they're coming along with their project, but we're not going to get anything from them this fall either. So it's kind of sad.
The reason that I'm bringing it up is because that doesn't mean that we have to stop our farm to school initiatives. It means that we have to be creative and think through ways that we can do farm to school. So today's call, I just kind of want to talk through, maybe you can share how you got started with farm to school. If you were just starting to implement farm to school, maybe it was one fruit and vegetable in particular, maybe it was a whole meal. Maybe it was just with one farmer. I'm just kind of thinking, can you just each take a moment and just share your stories? And Vicki, I'm going to toss the baton over to you to start with.
Okay, mine started first when I went to the MSNA conference and I had talked to people up there about getting a grant from U.S. Department of Agriculture, and kind of went through that scenario, went to a class on it, then I actually participated and filled out the grant and received the grant. And so that was huge for our school because so many of the grants require 50% free and reduced. And we're only about 36, 28, 36 in between there of free and reduced. And so grants for us are tougher because we don't have enough free and reduced students. And so that grant allowed me to change a few things in our elementary building. So in the grant, I had said that we would secure 5 farm to school vendors and within a 5-year period. Okay. And when you fill out a grant and you do those kinds of things, you follow through with everything you put on that paper or you get that taken away. And I had no problems doing that. In the grant also, it all coincided with everything that I did. I took field trips to a bison farm, and we had administrative there, we had parents there, we had students there, we did a couple different trips, and we went through, I think, to that farm 4 times. So I secured some bison products, and I've been with them for the last 5 years now. We did field trips to our Whitewater Gardens farm down in Elba, Minnesota. And so we're still getting things from them as well, except for since last spring we haven't, but I will hook up with them again this fall. I did receive all of our apples. I still kept her even during the pandemic. We have St. Charles Mischke Farms, and they do the apple orchard there. And so I've been dealing with her for the last 5 years. So I've got that taken care of. So that's 3 out of the 5 that I said I would do. And we had 2 others. I had another apple farm in Chester, Minnesota. And then I also had a farm that did lettuce and different kinds of things. It was called Superior from through our vendor. And then a couple of those places and another apple vendor in Rushford. And the apple vendor in Rushford are no longer, they folded up their company. So then that was kind of sad. But we're still dealing with all of those. And then I do all of my farm to school products that I can through my DOD fruits and vegetable program. So all of those are all farm to school. So basically we've stopped in a couple of things during the pandemic, but I still kept up with my bison producer and our apple producer in St. Charles. So basically it was just building a rapport with those people and continuing on. So now I can pick up more again this fall. I'm excited to get back into Whitewater Gardens because they now just put on some honeybees as well. So I could get some honey from them. We've got Met's Heartland Dairy down here. They have really good cheese, cheese curds. They have really good gelato ice cream. Like that's not really in the program. However, it's very good. I can tell you right now. So, I'm looking at those different things. So then again, we're going back to, we have fulfilled all our promises on the grant. We've got that probably like 6-7 years ago. So we've been through the process, and I think it was one of the best things we ever did. I really do.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Vicki. Barb, do you want to talk to us a little bit about how you got started?
Sure. Well, I always credit Brett for getting Hopkins started because Brett did introduce us to Greg Reynolds at a meet and greet, farmers and buyers. And that was when we had just decided that we were going to start looking into farm to school and how we could use it in our programs there at Hopkins Public Schools. And he just couldn't have introduced me to a better farmer. And Greg and I met several times. And the first year we identified a list of maybe 10 items, and they were pretty simple items: tomatoes, cucumbers, some onions, nothing too elaborate or anything. And we just asked our cook supervisors to order what they needed of those items from Greg. And so they did that. And then the second year, Greg came to us with an idea. He had a couple of recipes and said that he and his wife and some of his workers were thinking about preserving produce, and would we be interested in working with him on figuring out how we do a roasted tomato sauce and preserved cucumbers as a launching point for that program. And so I took that to our cook supervisors, and they were totally interested in it. And so we took off with that. And I think one year we bought, I should have looked it up before this meeting. I think we bought like 30,000 pounds of tomatoes between him and a couple other farmers, because he also was able to source from farmers around him. And so then we used that tomato sauce, we froze it, and then we used it in certain tomato dishes throughout the entire school year, so that the kids were getting fresh roasted tomato sauce. And just the smell of tomatoes, garlic, onion, salt and pepper, basil roasting in the schools, and that smell made everybody hungry, and they absolutely loved those days. But we did things like Vicki talked about the grants. So we did the Minnesota Ag grants, the Farm to School grants, and we got things like hand blenders, and we also got food processors. We got floor stand mixers. We got ovens. Because one of the things that we talked about with our cook supervisors is that if we were going to ask them to do these unique and different ways of handling foods, that we were going to give them the equipment to do that, so that we weren't asking them to perform small miracles every day in their kitchens, that was just too much to expect on an ongoing basis. And we, in fact, talked with our school board members and our superintendent, and since I started there in 2009, we have every one of our kitchens also remodeled completely to be able to accommodate. We cook about 95% of our food from scratch. And so we remodeled all the kitchens so that the cooks have the equipment and the space to do what it is that they need to do. And I think that that's a really important aspect that school board members need to be counseled on. For years, they've been kind of accustomed to just looking to school nutrition to see what kind of a fund balance they might have left, so that the school board could take that money and use it somewhere else in the district rather than investing it in the facilities. But if you look at the National School Lunch Program, USDA agreement, school districts have a responsibility to provide the right kitchen facilities and conditions for their staff to be able to produce the school meals. And so our school board was really super supportive of that idea. And so we got really lucky, but we also did our hard work by applying for a lot of grants so that we could get as much outside financial assistance as possible. We also really leaned heavily into the SHIP grants that we had access to. We did a lot of training with our staff. We did training on them, like just forks over knives, some of those food documentaries, just first of all, to inform them why we need to change our children's and adults' relationship with food and the food system that we have. And so then they understood why we were asking them to like jump over hurdles and through barbed wire fences and everything else to get to this point, right? But many of them too kind of lack the knowledge and skill about the depth of produce that we could get from farmers and stuff. And so we leaned heavily into our SHIP grants. We did lots of training with our cooks, knife skills, different ways to present fruits and vegetables. We really focused a lot on vegetables, not so much fruit. Kind of easy to get kids to eat fruit. But how many ways can you make broccoli, you know? And we came up with 3 different recipes, and then we produced them in the training, because some kids may not like raw broccoli, but they might like it steamed, or they might like it in a salad. But trying to find an entry point by offering vegetables in different ways was just one example of how we leaned into SHIP grants. But we try not to be really overly prescriptive with our produce with our staff. And we've kind of been that way from the beginning. And so our staff have really had a lot of input and selection on their own, like choices themselves of what it is that they want to do, what they want to be creative with. And I think that has really helped a lot with them being really invested in helping kids fall in love with fresh fruits and vegetables and in being creative with their work.
That is something that you and I had spoken quite a bit about when I asked you about joining this call, was getting those staff members engaged and how that can look. And I was absolutely fascinated by some of the conversations that we had around that, because getting those staff engaged was one of the first steps in making that take place, educating them on the importance of the nutrient density over the calories. And when you're working with Farm to School was something that you had incorporated into your staff training. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because we do things like we cut our own lettuce rather than get it in cut. We try to get in as many like whole carrots as we can. But we do that stuff because they're more nutrient dense when they're local and uncut, as opposed to being cut and in a bag with the vitamins and minerals leaching out the second that they're cut. But again, we bought the big orange round spinner tubs so that they could dry the lettuce easily after the lettuce was washed. And so there's another piece of equipment that I think is really important. And then things like carrots and stuff. When I first had a meeting with Ben from Open Hands and talked about it with the cook supervisors, I thought I was a little bit crazy. Like, you're going to ask us to peel carrots? And I was like, well, I've been in school nutrition for like 30 plus years. And we used to peel all the carrots. But B, we don't really have to. Ben's carrots are so clean. And if we just wash them, we can just like cut them into carrot coins. We don't have to peel them. And if we peel them, we are in fact losing the most nutrient dense part of the food. And so we don't peel those carrots. We just run them through our slicer on our mixer, and the kids absolutely adore those carrots. They're nice and sweet. And the kids have no idea we're not peeling them.
Absolutely. I love that. And it just gives you an idea of the ways that you can save on staff time. So Joe, up in Red Lake, you've got a whole nother challenge for us up there, because it is much colder up there. So You know, when I mentioned to Brett that I got you to be one of the talkers, the speakers on the panel today, he said, well, that's a really good one to have on here because you have to fight hard to make farm to school happen up there. And so share with us, like, you know, how you got started in farm to school, you know?
Well, it was really baby steps. I mean, I was always interested in farm to school, but it was really difficult in the beginning to find outlets that we could purchase fresh produce from. And so, like Vicky, I always did concentrate on through my primary vendor. There's local produce available through them, and then the DoD Fresh. Whenever there was locally grown produce on that list, I grabbed that up right away too. But when I was thinking as the other two were talking, my very first experience with farm to school was when I worked for Black Duck School District. And we had a retired physician, and his retired nurse wife that had a huge garden. And we got a hold of them, and they were the cutest little things, these tiny little people. And they would come to the school with all of their fresh produce, and we really loaded up on it. Black Duck is a smaller school district, so it didn't take a lot of volume of product to feed all the kids, but that was my very first experience. So when I got up to Red Lake, we did dedicate all of our commodity dollars to the DoD Fresh program. And we have done that. I just finished my 8th year there, and we've been doing that all along, and it's worked really well. And then, like I said, there was also another farmer over by Lake Itasca, which is probably from Red Lake, at least 2.5 to 3 hours away. But we did a lot of our communicating online, and then I would place my orders, and she would deliver that once a week. And so I was getting beautiful produce from her too. But I don't know if any of you other directors have any problems with politics in the school district. But once the Native Americans received their grants and wanted to pursue this gardening project, then I was pretty much instructed that I was not to be getting my produce from anywhere else. Although I still, on the backside, I was getting it from US Foods and I was getting it through the DoD Fresh. But then 3 years ago, Red Lake School District became one of 8 districts around the state that began participating. It's called the CDC 1801 grant. And it's a 5-year project. And it's based on the complete wellness of a child, the whole wellness circle. And of course, food and nutrition is a huge part of that. And so in year 1, we made it one of our priorities to purchase tower gardens. And those are basically portable greenhouses that go into your school district. We got 5 of them to start with. And I put one in each of the 5 school buildings. And then we had, the students were actually raising the produce. And then when they harvested it, then they would give it to the cooks, and the cooks would prepare it. And then a couple of kids from that particular classroom, whoever was responsible for it at the time, they were the local farmers that came in and helped serve the fruits or the vegetables, it's all vegetables, to the other students in the school building. So that has gone over really, really well. As a matter of fact, obviously with the pandemic, once again, from September to February, there was no activity going on because there were no kids in the buildings. But once those kids came back, the teachers were right on it. And tower gardens, they're lit 24 hours a day. They have a constant water source. There's no dirt there. It's like hydroponics. And so the growing period for any particular, like if it's lettuce or whatever you're growing, it it actually matures relatively quickly. So, you know, one class will come in and they'll grow the lettuce, and then the next class will come in and it's basil or whatever. But it's been fascinating because the kids, you know, are basically learning how to produce their own vegetables. And that's been huge. They really enjoy it, and it's more successful than I even dreamt it could be. So, you know, we do have our setbacks with certain things. Like I mentioned, the garden project right now, I don't believe they grew anything this past summer because they were very nervous about just even leaving their homes. Everybody was just sticking close to home, but I anticipate that will come back, and we'll keep going with our tower gardens. We'll maybe add a few more, but it's been a good experience. So it's not as widespread as like what Barb does, or even what Vicky does, but it's working so far so good for us, and we'll just keep chugging away and hopefully get more things that we can do too on the local level.
I love that. I love it. And it's so neat to hear each of you sharing different stories that you have. You know, because these are different food service directors that are on this call, looking at ways that they can begin implementing. I mean, some of these directors have done plenty with different local producers. I know like Brenton is ordering from the Good Acre, and Barb, I believe you are as well. Jill is ordering from the Wabasha online sales platform. So we have the farmers market food hubs that are going down in southeast Minnesota. But what have you learned about farm to school that you would share with other food service directors? If you were to kind of boost up farm to school, what would that look like, Vicki? If you were to.
Well, actually, I'm enjoying this because I'm learning so much more from Joe and Barb that I didn't know. So, you know, we're all here for the same reason, but I'm learning different things. So I'm already getting all my wheels going, you know, and going, oh my gosh, maybe we could do something different this fall. But well, I don't really know. I'm not sure how to answer that. I'm hoping to continue to keep going and maybe get some different ideas, like maybe start something in the classroom, that kind of thing. We're doing all our regular stuff. But I mean, I would tell them not to be scared of it. I mean, because at first I was. At first I was like, oh my gosh, that's so much work, or it's too much money, or you know what I mean? And you know, the staff's not gonna like it, but once you get going on it, it's okay. It's no different. You find all the perks and all the goods versus the cons and that kind of thing. So I guess I'd tell them not to be scared of it. Give it a try. You'll never know.
I love it. I love that. And I am gonna pass it now over to you, Barb, to see if you had anything that you would share for farm to school.
Yeah, well, I think it's always the most sustainable and easy thing to do with any change is to start out small. So find your entry point, gain some confidence, allow your staff to gain their confidence and new skills. And the more you try one new thing, say a year, pretty soon the ball gets rolling down, that snowball goes rolling down the hill really fast, and you start picking up momentum and you start doing things that you didn't know you were ever going to be capable of doing. And when I say you, I mean we, the staff, everybody gains this level of confidence. And to really work to give your staff involvement and autonomy in it. You know, we in school nutrition, we have to work with these USDA regulations, and they're just very prescriptive, right? Exactly 2 ounces of protein, exactly a half a cup, you know, but really, you know, they're only there 2 or 3 days every 3 years. And is that what we should be focusing on, or should we be focusing on building children's healthy relationships with food and adventurous eating? And so, you know, because of that very prescriptive way that USDA works, we have a tendency to think in that same way. And it's how our food world is now too, right? You can go to McDonald's and get the same burger every single time. But if you talk with farmers, it's kind of hard to replicate the same taste in all the produce and grains and everything every single year, because it's very dependent upon the level of sunshine, the level of rain, when it all comes, all those kind of things. And so we aren't doing ourselves any favor by having everything so homogenous. We aren't building good consumers of the future when we try to make everything so homogenous. So allow your staff some wiggle room, some elbow room, some creative space. And, you know, like how we do that at Hopkins is we identify one fruit, one vegetable every day that everybody has to do. And that helps us meet that fruit vegetable component. And every day they have to put out at least 4 vegetables and 3 fruits. So all the other stuff is where they get their creative freedom from. And that's where they get to buy what they want from the farmer, from a selection of farmers. That creativity that they bring to the program then brings their investment that helps them be excited about what they're offering to the students. And that excitement spills over then the students wanting to be adventurous eaters and try the things that the cooks are so excited about. So I guess that would be my advice.
I love that. I love that. So you're building adventurous eaters amongst the children, getting the consumers of tomorrow educated to try and taste the rainbow. Those are just great, great, great quotes. I love it. So Joe, any ideas?
First of all, Barb, that was great. About the review only once every 3 years. And we beg forgiveness and promise to do better, because it's progress, not perfection. So I'm gonna, if that ever runs across, I'm gonna say, well, Barb told me.
We're not recording this at all, right?
I'll be back in a couple of years. It'll be all right. You can tell them.
Yeah, it's just amongst us. But anyway, yeah, the starting small thing. I keep thinking of more little things, and they are little things, but we have technically a local wild rice farmer on the reservation. So, you know, we try to incorporate some indigenous meals, and wild rice hot dish is right up there at the top of the list. And so when he has the product for us, we will buy it locally from him, or we do use the canned Canoe brand of wild rice, which is produced over by Mille Lacs Lake, I think by the natives over there. So there's all kinds of different little ways that things can pop up, and you'll be able to use them. So I would say, for us up in our region, the most daunting task is finding more farmers, more producers that would be able to supply what we need. But you can't ever quit looking. I mean, you're going to find them sometimes years down the road that either they're brand new and just getting into helping out school districts, or it's somebody that you hadn't heard of before, and all of a sudden there they are. So you just gotta kind of give it a shot, and even if it's just little things here and there, it's better than nothing. You know, you can always, like everybody else said, build on it and keep going. So that's all I got.
I love it.
You know, Sarah, can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
I think one of our efforts this next year are going to be trying to find more local farmers who are women and people of color, trying to, I don't know, right some of the wrongs that have been done in the past. We know that, you know, land ownership and the ability to produce and sell is what built the wealth of this nation. And so that's one area that I think will be interesting to expand into this next year.
And
So,
the person that I would tell you to get a hold of is somebody from Common Ground.
mhm,
I was there at once, and there was a panel of women farmers, and they were very passionate about their jobs,
mhm,
and
mhm.
they probably would help you with that.
Thank you.
Love that. I love that. I don't know if you've seen the National Farm to School initiatives where they hope that by 2025 that they can have oh, how did they word it, Brett? Their goal is you have such an amazing, I'll put it in the chat, but it is outstanding. Also, I heard a little bit ago, Vicki, you mentioned you were looking at getting some classroom things going. There's a free ag mag that's made here in Minnesota, and I believe that that's still active. And I put the link in the chat where you can order free classroom materials that you can help incorporate farm to school into your classroom. Now I'd love to open it up to questions. I mean, I have 9 other questions on my list of questions to ask, but I feel like you don't need to hear from me, like Brent and Jill and Brian, Christy, Megan, Nikki, if you guys have questions for our panelists or thoughts, I'd like to invite you to throw some questions out there.
I'm going to ask a question. So Joe, up at Red Lake, with Red Lake Foods, have you been able to incorporate any fish into your school menus, or
Well,
not do that?
I mentioned politics.
Yeah.
First of all, people in Red Lake, if they're going to eat fish, it's got to be deep fried. And so that's kind of a deterrent because we don't do that anymore. But my predecessor, the food service coordinator before me, she had procured, because Red Lake Fishery is right, it's like 5 miles from where the school buildings are. And one year for Christmas, she was going to just kind of break the rules and ask for forgiveness later and deep fry all these fish for all of these kids. And so she went to the fishery and got all of this fish, and they charged her to the retail price for it. So it was extremely expensive, which is very prohibitive to our food service budget. So it happened once, and it hasn't happened since. Yeah.
It's a shame. It's such a great resource. And, I think down in Lewiston, if you had a source of walleye blocks from your school, you'd be like, yes, even though you couldn't deep fry it legally. It's just, yeah, it's interesting. It spurred my imagination when you were talking about, wild rice harvesting and that, I think so.
Yep. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, if I ever had tons of money sitting in that food service fund wanting to get spent somewhere, well, then we could do it. We could bake it, we could, but I don't know if they'd eat it, because once again, they are, it's a challenge up there to get kids to accept a healthier way of eating. There's a lot of poverty in our school districts. It's one of the little town of Panema, which is one of the schools. There was a thing released, I don't know how many years ago it was, but they actually were one of the top 5 poorest communities in the state. I mean, like the median or average wage per person up there for the year was $5,200. So when you have that level of poverty, you buy the food that you can afford. And we all know that a lot of that is not the healthiest food on the market. And so it's been a real challenge to get the kids to accept even the salad bars. But I was so proud of them the last year that we could have salad bars. I would go to the schools and I would look at their plates, and especially those younger grades, they're more accepting, and they were just these big, beautiful salads on those plates. And I always made sure that I love all the rainbow colors on your salad, you know, that kind of a thing. And as far as like, there are items out there that are whole grain baked goods like cookies and things like that. I have to be restrictive. I never put them on the menu because that child isn't going to know that that chocolate chip cookie is as healthy as it can be. They're going to see one on the shelf at the store and they're going to grab it because we get cookies at school. We can eat them here too. So, you know, we're trying to teach the kids a healthier way of eating, and it's getting better. I think now at this point, as far out as we are from the original Hungry Free Kids Act, that we probably only have a grade level or two left that hasn't grown up with salad bars in school. And so it's becoming easier and easier for these kids to accept it because they've had it from the time they came to school in kindergarten.
Sure.
So we're looking forward to those seniors getting out the door. So
I see that Nikki has a question. Let's see what Nikki's got over here. Thanks, Joe.
Not so much a question, but maybe a little insight. As Mary Jo was talking about Red Lake Nation, I don't know if there's any other Indigenous people on this call, but as in Prairie Island, we're one of the more wealthier ones, and we have the same issues down here. So I think more or less when you deal with the American Indian, as per what the government calls us, it's almost like when our members come back and do a healthier lifestyle, we're traumatized by food because of the reservations and with the commodities. So our members too are suffering from like health issues and things like that. So it's almost like you have to change the relationship. And it doesn't go, it's not just limited to American Indian, but we've formed like, it's almost like from my perspective, we were a food desert. I was hyperglycemic. You know, I have a kidney disease now, and the kidney disease actually pushed me into that healthier lifestyle. So what we do I'm into the food sovereignty on Prairie Island. And so it's my job to connect the people with the land. Once the people connect with the land, they understand that food is medicines. Our traditional plant medicines are medicines. But it's almost like food is healing. You have to get that key. And once they make that association with like, a good chart for maybe children to learn. I think I posted it on social media. There's particular foods that match our body parts. So obviously, like I need to eat kidney beans because they literally look like your kidneys, right? I actually eat buffalo kidney too, because that when my uncle was helping me heal my kidneys, bison kidneys are good regenerative for my own kidneys. So carrots look like eyeballs, good for your eye health. You know, there's many foods that represent our bodies, and from an Indigenous perspective, we're more of a visual. So if you sit there and tell us that these foods are good, we're not going to make the connection unless our visual understands through, you know. So it's almost like we gotta release that trauma part in order to move forward. But I really appreciate and love the work that you do. Did you say you work for SHIP and tobacco, or just SHIP?
Me?
Did someone mention SHIP?
Yeah, there's two on this call.
I used to be employed by SHIP and Tobacco Grant. And so I continue to volunteer with my tribal community still, just because I'm now school board member, so in Red Wing here. So first of all, I want to take the time to say thank you for inviting me to this. This is great work. The more that we can get all this information out and kind of stick together and share knowledge and information, the better. So thank you very much for creating the space and inviting me to this today.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Nikki.
I am in no way, I am the president of the Minnesota School Nutrition Association, but I want to make it clear that on this call, I'm not expressing any views or any opinions that would reflect back on my association. With that being said, we are going to be having our annual conference for all MSNA members the first 4 days of August. And we were lucky enough to secure Chef Sean Sherman from the Sous Chef.
Wow.
And he's going to give educational sessions. It's going to be 2 different sessions. It's the day of our vendor show, so half of our members will go to the vendor show and speak to our suppliers. The other half will sit with Chef Sean. That's hard to say. And then they're going to switch out. And that is going to be the focus of his presentation as well, that, you know, for all of our school children across the state, we need to be feeding them healthier, more foods from the land. And he's going to give us insight on how we can accomplish that. So, you know, it's going to be a wonderful day with him, and we're very excited. And I think it's a message that we all need to hear, and it'll help us get going in that direction.
I would just add to the space that I think it's wonderful to have a school leader that is so knowledgeable and involved in this work, because that is really what we need in schools. Is we need leadership from the top. We can talk a lot in our school nutrition department, but there are hierarchical levels in schools. There always has been, and there always will be. And school nutrition is kind of typically at the bottom of that. So having school board support and having them, I'm going to say, like, push this forward with superintendents and principals is critical, because when they get it, then things really happen. Like Joe said, she's been pushing for breakfast in the classroom for years. And now after the pandemic, they get it. But, you know, Joe's known it for years, but nothing happened. And so you really, we're going to make so much more progress when leaders in schools really get this. So, and I love your sage that you've been tying, by the way.
Amazing.
It's that time of year, you know, got to get that done. And then also, I just want to add, you know, when you guys are going up against your school leaders, we all know what 2020 and 2021 has done to our students. I have teenage kids myself right now, and I said I would never want to be a teenager during this time whatsoever. I thought the 90s were bad enough. But the food that we feed our body is critical to our mental health. The junk food is literally like a gray veil that just kind of dims like our spirit and our critical thinking process. So when you're trying to advocate to your higher ups, make sure you really push that mental health piece. You know, we can take care of the mental health by just supplying the right food.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In the chat, I found the Farm to School call to action by 2025. Their call to action is not 90, not 80, not 70, 100% of communities will hold power in a racially just food system. And I would love to have each of you grab that link and look at it. There's a short video. They have done some amazing things to help encourage and support. And I'd like to have a call on how we can make a racially just food system in Minnesota? What can we do to help support a racially just food system? And Brett and I will make that be one of our calls that are going to be coming up. And we would invite our presenters to be a part of that as well, even if you just want to join our call. Brian and Barb and Vicki and Joe. Hi, Sweet Pea. You're welcome to join us too. I do have a note, and I want to respect everybody's time because, again, we scheduled this thinking it was going to be after school hours and it's summer. Like, really? It's berry picking time. I got to go. Berries are calling. I'm sure you all have lots to do, but I am looking at scheduling a farm tour in southeastern Minnesota to hit on some of the farms that are going to be supplying our food to the local schools and also to institutions throughout the community down here, specifically looking at our Goodhue and Wabasha County participants to see if you could raise a hand, give me a thumbs up. I'm looking at July 27th. I did leave you guys a call, but we had one of our participants was getting married. Am I saying the right date, Brett? July, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it the 19th? July 27th, so Tuesday, July 27th. We were looking at the 19th, but that's just too soon. And Kristen, one of our producers, is getting married right in the middle of the summer. Can you believe it? Super exciting. What was that?
What time?
We're looking at meeting at Fiesta Foods in Lake City. Jill, I see your thumbs up. Lake City Fiesta Foods starting at 9 a.m. And we're looking at going maybe 9 to 3-ish on a Tuesday. Maybe hitting 4 or 5 or 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 5 or 6 farms if we can do it. We're going to see what happens. 9 to 3, 9 to 4. Well, I don't know. We'll see. You can drive carpool and talk between. But meeting our farmers, I think it would be really a great opportunity. Vicki, if you'd like to join us, Megan says yes. So we have a yes from Megan and Jill. It's a Tuesday. Barb, you mentioned to me what that meant. And we talked about farm tours. Have you done farm tours?
Yeah, we have done farm tours, and even our staff have been out to some of the farms, and most of them love going out to Greg's farm when they can. But it really does help close the circle of information and knowledge, again, for your staff when they return to a farm. A lot of people, especially, who were never raised on a farm, and even some of those like I who were, like, returning to the farm just brings everything back to the circle of life and how important food is and how important your connection to working in the dirt and physical labor and how healing that is in of itself and stuff. So I really encourage farm tours if you can do it.
Yeah, we have to cut out here, but I think the other thing, Barb, is that I think there's some hesitancy about food safety. And to go to a farm that's really a professional vegetable farm and know that they have processes in place to really separate field totes from pack shed totes to delivery totes, they're different. They don't just have one tote, run them all out to you at the school. I think that for school service staff to know that those carrots from Open Hands are cared for very, very much all the way through the process, I think is important. Sarah, do you want to let us all go? And then
I do. I heard Megan. I'm going to ask Tina, 27th. Brenton, I see you're a no. And nobody, don't feel pressured. I just want to see so that when I'm reaching out to the producers. And Nikki.
I'm sorry, I'll be taking off that Wednesday, so I'll be packing at Tuesday, so I will not be in participation of the farm tour that day.
Got it. And I'm going to ask which Christy we have on the call. I have Kajowski and I also have Crop. So I'm curious which one is here. And Tina, are you able to make that one?
I should be able to. I have one conflict, but I should be able to make it.
We can let you go. I'll reach out to Christy unless she unmutes. thank you all. You guys, I really appreciate you sharing your stories, sharing your lessons, and helping us navigate this. And I want to applaud each and every one of you for all of the good work and things that you accomplished in 2020 and 2021. We don't hear it often enough, but I'll tell you that everybody had different things that they had to navigate during 2020 and 2021. But you food service directors, I think you took the cake between you and nurses. I don't know which one. Ouch. Wow. So kudos to you for all that you've accomplished. You survived. I'm proud of you. Pat yourselves on the back. I know that, Barb, we talked PTSD is a thing. Some of us are, navigating this now, looking at the staff that were laid off and the challenges that were in there. So just bless you all. Good job.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.